Hey guys, Akil Stokes here. Welcome back to another video episode of the Trading Coach Podcast. Now, if you're someone who usually listens to the audio version only, I do recommend heading over to Spotify. They do the audio and they do the video editions. That way, instead of bouncing back and forth, you can just get whatever version it is from the same place each and every time. You can also watch on YouTube as well. That's another option. Now, let me ask you a question. Have you ever felt overwhelmed? Have you ever felt like you lacked confidence? Have you ever doubted yourself to the point that you either wanted to quit or maybe you actually did quit? If you said yes, don't worry. That just means you are human and it is completely normal. But the good news is in today's episode, I've got 3 practical solutions that can help you when, not if, when those feelings show up. Now, speaking of 3, just reminded me, 3-day workshop, year-end, big one coming up at the end of November. Register now. I checked yesterday. We have 400 seats filled, which means there aren't many left. And usually the week before the workshop is when everyone floods in, rushes to the door, and unfortunately only a few get in. So if you are someone that has been on the fence about doing something that is going to help make your 2026 much better than 2025 in trading, I highly recommend that you get off that fence and you head over to your computer and you register now for the workshop. That way you don't regret it. Link is available in the description box below, or head over to www.tier1trading.com and you should see a banner on the top. So I want to kick things off by talking about something called task saturation. And that is a big word that makes me seem smart, but pretty much it just means that you are overwhelmed. So this task saturation happens when pretty much there are simply more things that we want to do than we can practically handle. Kind of like an information overload type of situation for your brain. In real life, this could be when your to-do list is so big that you just kind of just sit on the couch and do nothing because you just can't comprehend doing everything. In the trading world, this is kind of like a paralysis analysis type of deal where you see so much on the chart or there's so many things that you want to do that you end up doing nothing. Either way, it can be very dangerous because what happens during this situation is that your cognitive ability starts to drop. So your thinking, your learning, your retention, your problem solving, all the good things that our supercomputer of a brain are supposed to do, they start to kind of break down. The result of this, well, when other things go down, things go up, stress goes up, anxiety goes up, and in general sense, you just start to have this feeling that you're failing. So negative thoughts rush into your brain, right? Loss of confidence, I guess you can say. And in trading specifically, zoom in now, this is a recipe for disaster. I wish I had a chef's hat. Maybe I'll edit one on my face or something like that. You see, when your brain gets overloaded, it stops using rational thoughts, right? And it starts running on emotion. And I'm sure you already know because you've listened to plenty of Trading Coach podcast episodes or watched plenty of YouTube videos or read plenty of books, but emotional trading mistakes are the number 1 killer of traders. So when we take ourselves from a rational state to an emotional state, we are pretty much stepping into the arena of death, fighting all types of weird things like they had in that new Gladiator movie. Not new, but the second one, not the first one. And when we enter this arena and bad things are about to happen, we start flooding our brain with negative thoughts. So we start saying stuff like, I knew I shouldn't have done that, or I knew I couldn't do this, or I never get this right, or I'm just not good at this. All of this stuff, which we call, there's a scientific name for it, head trash. And the biggest danger with head trash is that essentially it just causes you to give up. You have no more desire to live. If you're in that gladiator arena with wild beasts coming at you, just sit there and be like, take me. In trading or any other task in life, you kind of just say, I'm done, and you give up and you fail. Seeing how the gladiator example is pretty brutal and harsh, I have another example for you which may or may not be just as brutal or harsh depending on your experiences. But you guys know by now that both my kids play soccer, and over the years I've learned something. I've learned something very important. Soccer parents, especially the moms for some reason, are the worst creatures on earth. Seriously, I'd rather be locked in a room with, what's that Stranger Thing beast, the Demogorgon, right? I'd rather be locked in a room with the Demogorgon than be locked in a room with a soccer parent. It is horrible. And I say that because I've seen so many kids, I'm talking young kids, like my kids are 10 and 7. I'm seeing so many kids, young kids, get crushed because instead of being encouraged by their loved ones, their parents, they're being yelled at for every single mistake. They can do a million things right, but every single thing they do wrong is nitpicked at, and they're just yelled at. Do this, do that, be better, do that, do that, do that. And you can literally see these kids on the pitch like just give up. They're looking at their parent. They're like, I'm trying my best, man. Like, I'm trying, and nothing they can do is right. And they quit. They give up. Those negative thoughts, not the self-negative thoughts, but the outside negative thoughts that are coming towards them, or negative words that are coming towards them, are defeating these kids, and they no longer have a desire to play or at least try hard. Bigger picture, when they go into other things in life, because these kids aren't going to become pros, now they have that negative taste in their mouth where they probably lost confidence and maybe don't think they can be good at anything. And that's a whole nother thing. That's one of the reasons many people think they can't trade, because the world for so many years have told us that you can't be a trader. You need to have this degree. You need to do that. You need to be born here. You need to look like that. And a lot of us for a long period of time thought that we can't be successful traders just because we don't look like the stereotypical successful trader, or we don't come from the same place that the stereotypical trader comes from. The fact of the matter is, we can be successful. That kid can be successful. And I remember the first quote that I put in my very first trading plan. I've shown you it a few times on the Trading Coach podcast. Last time I did it, I got a spider web in the mouth. So I am not going to do that again because I'm very fearful and may have some sort of PTSD because of that. But the very first sentence in my trading plan said this: I believe that the only reason people quit is because they give up before having a chance to earn success. Keyword, give up. So now that we know the problem of becoming overwhelmed and lacking confidence, let's talk about 3 solutions that you can do to kind of get yourself out of this situation. Step 1 is going to be acceptance, right? Accept that you are overwhelmed, right? The first step of anything, of any legitimate change, I should say, is always just acknowledging that change needs to be made. As you know, I've had the luxury of working with hundreds of thousands of traders all across the globe, which is a really cool experience, by the way. And although some of those traders are very experienced and like hanging with us because trading is a lonely sport and it's cool to have like-minded people to hang out with and talk nerdy trading stuff, most of those people are brand new to trading, or new-ish and kind of struggling and trying to figure it out. And here's what typically happens. They get onto the platform, they start going through the courses. In our courses, we cover lots of things starting at the basics, right? The basics of technical analysis, or the basics of what a market is, basics of technical analysis. We go over trading psychology. We go over money and risk management. And at some point in there, they dive into the magical section where we teach the trading strategies, the very specific trading strategies. And it ends up being like my 7-year-old walking into a candy shop. They see everything and it all looks amazing and they just want it all, and they sample this and they sample that, and they get overwhelmed because it is too much. It is a sugar rush and they pass out somewhere on a couch. And there are typically 2 groups of traders when they get to that level. One trader tries to muscle it out. They believe that they can do all of it. They are Superman or Superwoman, and they end up getting themselves into more trouble because it's just impossible to put all of that stuff in your brain and separate it and use it in an efficient way. The other side admits that, yeah, maybe I bit off too much than I can chew. And although I can revisit all of these delicious pieces of trading candy later, right now I do need to kind of focus on minimizing the information that I'm taking in. And this is where step 2 comes into hand. Prioritize. Once you've accepted that you can't eat everything, it's time to prioritize the things that you want to eat, the things that you want to trade. I'm thinking about delicious candy. It's almost lunchtime and I'm extremely hungry right now. But you need to decide what you want to focus on. And I have a few tips for you. Tip number 1, right? Pick something you're good at. Seems simple, but this is often overlooked. Many traders want to pick something that looks the best or is the shiniest or has the best promise of results. And many traders aren't good at that. my advice, and I've gone through lots of weird experiences like this, maybe I'll share one if I can think of one in my head, is to pick something that you're good at. I actually got one, right? When I first started trading, I came from the investment world and I learned about technical analysis, and it was cool because I learned about something called discretionary trading, where I have the freedom to roam and make decisions and do the things I want to do. I wasn't prepared to have this freedom, but I did have it. And quick plug real quick, if you want to learn more about discretionary trading, we did a cool little 3-part series on YouTube about that. We did 2 YouTube videos and episode 1233 of the Trading Coach podcast. You can check those out. I'll link them below, but it kind of talks about the pros and cons of discretionary trading versus being a systematic trading. And that is something that you need to decide when you're on this journey. But my problem was this. Although I wanted to be a discretionary trader, I wasn't skilled enough or trustworthy enough to take on that responsibility. It was like Spider-Man, where they say, hey, with great power comes great responsibility. And I'm like, oh no. And I throw the mask off and run away and want no parts of that problem, right? I just wasn't able to do it. So what I did was I switched to something that was more black and white. It wasn't fully systematic trading because that had its own trust issues, but I went to more of a strategy that was pretty much, these are the rules, follow the rules. There's very little interpretation. And what that did was it put me into position to be a successful trader. It wasn't my favorite strategy. It wasn't what I preferred. And that's why as I evolved as a trader, I actually went back to the discretionary style that I'm trading right now. And when I say go back, I added it back when I was more experienced. But at the time, I just needed something that was going to make me money. I quit 3 jobs to become a professional trader and follow this dream. I learned a harsh reality that it wasn't going to be as easy as I thought. And I said, oh crap, I'm unemployed. I need to make money. I better get good. So I put my ego to the side and said, hey, this may not be my favorite thing to trade, but it makes money and it allows me to have time and opportunity to then add things that I favor more. Tip number 2, right? Within section number 2, if you're following along here, pick something that fits your schedule, right? We all are a little bit different. We all have different responsibilities. We all have different life schedules as far as family, as far as work and entertainment, stuff like that. Just how traders kind of get wowed by a specific strategy that sounds cool, we do the same thing with trading, where it's like, I want to be a day trader and stare at the charts for 12 hours a day. Even though, one, no day trader I know has ever stared at the charts for 12 hours a day, and 2, no day trader I know would ever want to stare at charts 12 hours a day. It's not as glorious as you think, but we're sold that action and shiny thing, and it's intriguing, right? But if you work a full-time job where you don't have access to sneak away to a bathroom and stare at your charts consistently 12 hours a day, you probably can't be that type of trader. So my advice is always to look at your schedule, right? Write it out, list it out, look at your pockets, look at your availability, and then fit your trading around that. Whether you're going to be an intraday trader that is allowed to check their charts every hour or every 4 hour, or maybe just an end of day trader who waits to the end of the day, looks at the daily chart and makes a decision based off that. Or maybe you do have a pocket of time where, hey, you're going to be an active day trader, but only 3 hours a day before you go to work. You'll wake up 5 and trade from 5 to 8 and then go to work at 9 and boom, that's your trading style, right? It doesn't matter what you pick, but it needs to be something that you can actually do, because there's no point in picking a strategy on a time frame if you can't actually execute it. Step number 3, back to the bigger list of steps, not the intermediate steps. Focus on your next task, right? Your next task should be your best task. And I say that because one of the biggest culprits of overwhelmedness, things that cause you to become overwhelmed, is thinking too far ahead. You know, we've had this debate on goal setting, and I have an interesting philosophy with goal setting. I think a lot of people think I'm against setting goals, right? Goals are like, hey, in 5 years, I'm going to do this and this and this and this and this, right? I am fine with that, right? You need to have a big picture. You need to have something, a destination at the end of your journey. If not, you're always on a journey and you're never actually achieving anything, right? There's accountability in that as well. But the problem with that is that most people set goals, and either one of two things happens. They focus on that bigger goal, and they never put any energy into the things that it takes to accomplish that bigger goal. It just kind of floats out there and it never gets any closer. Or 2, they focus on that bigger goal. They work backwards and look at all the steps it's going to take to accomplish that bigger goal. And they're like, oh man, that's a lot. shoot, really? And then they get overwhelmed and intimidated, and it never occurs. So you need to break it down into bite-sized chunks where you simply focus on the next task and look at it as being like stair steps, right? Climb one step, then climb one step, and climb another step. We do this with trading a lot, where again, going back to the last example, where traders see all this delicious trading candy and they want to trade 4 or 5 strategies, but it's too overwhelming and they end up failing. Well, make that a bigger goal. Maybe your goal is to eventually have a portfolio of 4 different trading strategies. But like I said earlier, start with one. Then after you master one, after you start making consistent money with one, add another. And then you have 2. And then you have 2 things that are making money. And as you're consistently making money with 2 things, add another until you eventually get to that ultimate destination. From more of a micro sense, like actually focusing on the chart and not like the portfolioization of the chart, think about it like this. So we have this strategy called the CTS strategy, Combined Technical Score Strategy. And in this strategy, a trader is tasked with looking at about 8 different things before making a decision upon entry. And a lot of people crash and burn when trying to trade this strategy because they come into the charts and they know the 8 things that they focus on, and now they're like, where are these 8 things at? And they're all over the place. It's like the gif of the person thinking about all those numbers and they're swirling in front of their face is one of those type of deals. And what you have to do is you have to woo-saw, right? Just relax a little bit, right? Instead of focusing on all 8 things at once, this is why we put things into a checklist, write it in order, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and then just focus on one at a time. Look for 1, check or no check. Look for 2, check or no check. Look for 3, check or no check, and work through the process one step at a time. This is very similar to that IPDE process that you hear me talk about religiously on every single video. We had a conversation in the live room this morning about perhaps getting it tattooed backwards on our head. That way, if we were to put a mirror on our computer screen, we would see IPDE, and it would be a delightful reminder of that we should do it. The problem is you would never get another job again with a big IPDE tattooed backwards across your face. However, that might actually be motivation for you to become a good trader because you have no other option. Anyway, I digress. The IPDE process is identify, predict, decide, execute. It's a 4-step process that I use to break down the charts every single time. Now again, I am someone that trades multiple pairs, multiple styles. I trade patterns, advanced patterns. I trade simple patterns. I trade trend continuation. I trade counter trend. I trade structure. There's all types of different ways I could attack the market. I built those step by step, one by one. And if I were to go on a chart and just think about all of those things at once, I would get completely overwhelmed and my face would blow up. But having this process, IPDE, allows me to work through one step at a time, only focusing on the step that's in front of me. Identify what's going on. Write down my observations. Based off what I identify, now I can go and predict. Based off what my prediction is, now I have a directional bias, right? Now I can decide how do I get involved. So it takes a very, I don't want to say complicated process, but what could be a complicated process, and it makes it very simple by only focusing on what's in front of you, and then once you remove that one thing, focusing on only the next thing that's in front of you. Now, my last tip, and we're going to call this a bonus, right, is do less. Jason Greystone always has a quote on this. We used to do it on the Trader Coffee Break, which is a great playlist if you haven't watched it already. If you're a newer trader looking for water cooler conversations on the basics of trading, right? All different subjects that you guys brought to us, check out the Trader Coffee Break playlist. I'll link that in the video below as well. But I think his thing was do more by doing less, something like that. I wish I remember it because it's really cool. But the fact of the matter is, doing a little less is very helpful. And I do have a Trading Coach podcast planned on coming out about this subject on like bandwidth, and hopefully I'll get that out to you soon. But the fact of the matter is, we need to put ourselves in a position where we're not overwhelmed. I take me as a day trader, for example. When I day traded, I tried to watch 8 pairs at once, and I got completely overwhelmed because there was just too much action. There was too much going on. I couldn't process it all. What I decided to do was, find out how much I could actually handle. And for me, that was 6. Now, here's the key. Once you find out how much you can actually handle without getting completely overwhelmed, do a little bit less. So although I knew I can handle 6 within my comfort zone, I decided to only focus on 4 pairs a day during that day trading situation. Not only did that guarantee that I wouldn't get overwhelmed, but it actually allowed me to have kind of extra processing power to focus on the things that I wanted to focus on, and it helped me become a much more efficient trader. You know what? Just that very small change made all the difference in my trading. I became more efficient, I became more focused, I became less anxious, and because of that, I was getting more done, making more money, and I also felt a lot better about myself. And it's that type of positive mental cycle that pushes you towards success, right? Belief, action, results, that whole thing, versus the negative cycle of negative thoughts and thinking we're failures that ultimately cause us to fail. So to close things up and wrap it in a nice little bow, a few things you should focus on is this. 1, accept that you're doing too much. 2, prioritize what matters. 3, focus on the next task. So start small, stay consistent, and I think you'll be amazed by how much lighter that mental load is for you. And I think you'll also be amazed at how your results will all of a sudden start to turn around in a much more positive direction. Hope you enjoyed the episode. Like, subscribe, follow, comment, all the things that you're supposed to do. And remember, 3-day online trading event coming up soon. 400 seats are booked, not many left. www.tier1trading.com. You don't want to miss it if you're serious about becoming a better trader in 2026. All right, until next time, plan your trade, trade to plan. Akil out.